texted at 11:30 because it woke her up and said, why don't you cut your damn phone off? There's still 3 biscuits up here if anybody wants them. First 3 to get here will get the feed. No takers? Greg? Mike? Boy, Chick-fil-A is losing their touch.
The town's fast food restaurant, a McDonald's, is scheduled to be built soon.
Yeah,
I remember when they opened that thing.
it's time.
Been there since before 1987.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's time that we open this council meeting, call meeting. And first order of business would be, do we have a motion to accept the agenda, or do we have any additions or subtractions?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add a discussion to revisit the elk, please, sir.
All right, where would you like to have that at? First or last?
That's at your discretion, sir.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and do that first.
Okay? I would think it would be brief.
Okay. Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Okay, with the adjusted agenda, we will move on. And where do we want? I guess we'll put that under Ann's discretion since she brought it up. So, Ann, you're on.
Sorry, I'm still furiously looking through my notes for something, but, so I wanted to readdress the elk, and all of you have been on the email.
One second. Can y'all didn't call the meeting to order.
Oh,
Okay.
Motion.
He did.
I heard y'all make a change, but did they say approve the agenda?
I thought he called the meeting to order
I
first.
did too.
I thought
Okay.
we did. All right, sorry.
Can we call the meeting to order this morning? Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, we have a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Meeting's called to order.
Okay, sorry. So there's been some emails floating around about the elk, and we had a citizen that sent an email, I think maybe Monday, that asked about the precedent we set by allowing a non-city paid for statue on city property. Now, I have no issue with an elk. I think it's fine. I like it. Whatever. But the precedent that we set, I'm afraid, and Robin actually confirmed it in email, that we would have a difficult time denying any sort of additional statue, no matter the subject content. It could be a violation of speech or discriminatory, et cetera. With that being said, I wanted to ask my fellow council members if they were open to revoting or changing their votes, because if we had talked about it that night and talked about how it would have set us up in a bad precedent, I would not have voted the way I did. So Robin said that there was no precedent, that there was nothing in the MUTA code that eliminated us, or in the charter that didn't allow us to vote on it again. So I wanted to bring it back up. There, I've said my piece.
Okay. Is that a motion? Would you like to make a motion?
Well, I didn't know if anybody wanted to discuss it, or should I
Well,
just
if
make
you
a
don't get
motion?
a second, we'll know. If you do get a second, we'll vote on it and go for it.
So I
Okay.
would like to make a motion to reopen the elk discussion.
Okay, so we have a motion to reopen the discussion, and we have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so be it. Ann,
Yes, sir?
you've already mentioned your thought process.
Yep.
Is there anything else to mention? You want to see if there's any questions, any whatever?
No, I think I've said my piece, so.
Okay, anybody got any questions?
I do.
Okay.
Did you happen to talk with Tim Prater to see if there's any kind of ordinance that applies to the statues, just like we did with the pinwheels? that it was in an ordinance. Did you happen to talk to him to see if there was any kind of ordinance as far as what we will and will not allow in the city, as far as profanity or, something that goes against, that would be offensive to other people? Because if we have ordinances for everything else, we have ordinances for signs and everything. So why could we not adopt an ordinance for statues and put in there what the limitations are?
I did not talk to Tim. I went straight to Robin because I felt it was more of a legal issue, and it parallels the mural issue. So if we eliminate or restrict the content of the mural, it is the same type of legal issue if we restrict the type of statue. It's the same same issue, just a statue, not a drawing.
Okay, so we voted for the murals, correct? To be downtown? And anybody can put up whatever they want to put up?
Agreed.
So to me, it's the same concept.
I don't think I voted for the mural. That's what I was looking at my notes for. That's why I brought it back up. When was it, Christie?
Okay.
The mural? I've been looking for it in my notes. I can't find it. Anyway, I'm just concerned that we can end up with with God knows what. May? Okay, thanks. Oh, I was on May.
There is no ordinance on statues either.
Say again?
There is no ordinance for the statues currently.
Right.
So if you did want to proceed, then I would suggest we create an ordinance, then come back to elect the statue. If you do the statue now, and then turn around and write an ordinance, you're kind of on
Agreed.
the opposite end. If you remember the murals, we had to change the ordinance before you voted on it. Or we had to actually adopt an ordinance because we changed it with great discussion.
So
Okay.
it is possible to have an ordinance that we could vote on, possibly next meeting or something.
I don't know if it'd
Per-
be next meeting, but, I think what Robin was trying to express was it necessarily may not be words as much as symbols, art. And that's what she was trying to say. If you let a monument of any sort come to the city property that's someone that, the citizens' donations, however you want to say it, then if some other group wanted to come up and put something, you'd be hard pressed to potentially deny that based
Okay.
on content.
Okay, so the Veterans Memorial statue that we have at the old City Hall, that was paid for by the city?
No.
I don't
it was
recall. I
not.
don't
No, it
believe
was
so.
not.
Okay.
It was complete donations.
So that was complete donation.
So we have it up. It's inside the city. It's one that's non-movable. The elk's gonna be
Yep.
movable. So we've already got one up in the city, and nobody pitched a fit about it. So I'm just saying,
Wait a second, are you comparing a
I'm
veteran
just
statue
saying-
to a deer, elk?
No.
From an Apple TV show that
No.
most of us won't see on the
That's
town
not-
green?
no,
When
that's-
everybody in this room, if you would pay attention to body language and what Robin's saying, this is a dumb idea, just dumb.
Well, I don't want to get into the actual content because I don't think that's the fight. The fight is any content. That's my concern. And I believe that historically, something already being here would be grandfathered in long before. It's the precedent we set now as the current council. If we say that no matter what the statue is, if we allow it, that we open ourselves up to not being able to say no to something that would be offensive to us or offensive to the city.
well, could the ordinance not state that?
No,
Yeah.
because it's the same as the mural. The ordinance can't say that you can't have a mural that depicts X, Y, and Z. The only thing if you remember, what Robin said clearly was that the ordinance cannot deal with content. It can deal with how big it is. It can deal with how often it can be changed, but the content cannot be done by the council. Is that, anybody else have any?
So, and I guess what kind of conflicts me on it is we're talking about, well, potentially making an ordinance for statues, which is a whole separate issue. I mean, really, and I think I said it in an email, it's kind of like you can look at a definition of a statue and, okay, it's a statue, but it's really more of a decoration. But the issue is we as a council are voting whether or not to put it on city property. Because it's donated. That was one of my issues is that, you know, it was not going to come from city funds, although, you know, I know Danny's got to install it, but the issue is, are we as a council going to let it on city property? And, you know, that should be up to us. I mean, it should be, you know, I read Robin's emails multiple times. I was trying to sit there and think, you know, but we're saying if somebody wanted to come up and put some other type of statue somewhere else, it's not covered in our ordinance, you know? I mean, we have if they want to erect it out in front of, you know, a property down the street, we really don't have anything to go against it, right? So the question is, you know, is this okay? To me, it's just an ornament. Is this okay if we stick it on city property that it's been raised funds that were not raised by the city?
Okay, any other discussion?
Yes, I have a few comments to make. I think, and I know this isn't really, and because I think that both of them argued it pretty well on your point there, Ann. But we live in a strange new world that people like Instagram photos of things, especially in downtowns, and there's a lot of other downtowns that have Instagrammable moments, like statues, murals, stuff like that, people to draw people downtown. And if we get rid of this on this vote right now, then this is a tool out of our toolbox to, I get some people don't like the content of the elk, and I mean, I'm not saying that maybe we could go ask to see if they have a deer comparable value or something, a white-tailed deer, and put that there instead. But right now we're currently in the putting lipstick on a pig approach on Main Street. But really, we need to show that we invest in our downtown to get other investors and other businesses to do better downtown. And this is a free way pretty much to show that we are committed to making our downtown more attractive. And, you know, obviously what we've been doing in the past, not allowing anything going downtown, hasn't been working. So, and it is movable. If we put it there for a little while, we can move it later on. But I can see, you know, further down the road, getting more creative with it. Maybe during Christmas time, we could put like, you know, reindeer sleigh thing on it with a red nose, and that would make it more Instagrammable, and people get excited about that. Certain holidays, we could dress it up. I know it's kind of silly, but my mother-in-law, she has a goose in her house that she dresses up for every holiday, and she thinks it's the funniest thing in the world. And we could do something like that with the deer, and just to bring people downtown, get people to take pictures of it. But I do think this is a free way to show that we are committed to doing something downtown without, you know, spending taxpayers' money. And plus, I just think a lot of people are going to like it. Now, I understand setting precedent and all, but everything would have to come to city council for approval or denial. So we would be that line in the sand to say. And, you know, if we do get a big suit or something coming against us because we don't put some far right-wing neo-Nazi whatever hypothetically could come here, then we remove the elk at that point or something like that. I mean,
I guess from what I understand from Robin, that we don't have the right to say yes or no. It doesn't come before the council on content. I agree with what you're saying about an Instagrammable moment, all of that on private property. We want to do some sort of ordinance on statues later, great, let's do it. It's the city property that's the problem. So,
Okay, any other discussion?
Okay, I got a question, Danny. So if somebody else comes to the city and wants to put something up on city property, does not have to go before the council?
I think that would have to be voted on by the council.
Yeah,
But
you have to.
the question is, what would be your reason to deny if you allow this other? That's what I think Robin was implying, yes, it would have to come before y'all, because it's owned by the city, which,
But if we adopted an ordinance and put in there specifically, that you can't, sir?
your mic.
Oh, sorry, that you can't, put a naked woman, say, in the middle of the green. You know, bad taste. I mean, that would be a reason to, or be offensive, that would be a reason to deny it.
Well, I think, I'm just going back to what Robin said, was arguably, by erecting the elk statue, the city may create what is known as a limited public forum under First Amendment law. So I am incorrect. It would definitely come before the city. So I said that incorrectly. However, this means that the city could impose time, place, and manner restrictions, but could not regulate the content of expression within the limited public forum. Example of time, place, and manner include regulation of material, construction, prohibition of illumination lights, no digital content, etc. Content-based regulation would encompass exactly what Mr. Parsons highlights. That's Terry who sent the email. The city could not deny another statue based solely on its message. So, I think I have said what I wanted to say.
That's fair. And I don't know that we would have the luxury of denying something either way this vote goes, if we don't have something in an ordinance. That's still in the courts all over the country, what can and cannot be done. So, with that said, any other discussion? Okay. Would you want to put that in a motion, anyone?
I would like to move that we withdraw support for putting an elk statue on city property.
Okay. We have a motion. We have a second.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, say aye. Let's do this by a show of hands if we could, just for the heck of it. All those in favor of denying putting the elk statue in by the town green, please show your vote yes by raise of your hands. Okay, so we got 3.
Checkers and chess.
Those who say no, that the elk is okay in downtown, would you vote by raising your hand? Okay, so we got a 3-3 vote. That leaves it up to me. And in most days, I would know exactly what I was going to do. However, this was never intended to be, never should have been, a divisive confrontation between council. It was intended to be a gift to the citizens of Loganville, who, when the movie company brought it here, loved it, and many, I can't say all because I didn't talk to all, but obviously not all, but many asked us to go to the movie company and ask them to leave it. And we did. And they agreed to leave it. However, when packing day came, it went with everything else. We've been in touch with the movie company since then, requesting they give it back because we didn't want to go through this ordeal. The answer that I got back, and I'm going to try to quote it because those folks who are watching YouTube apparently like to look at every word that anybody says, so this is a paraphrase probably. But they said when they finish filming for this series, forever and forever, they will consider our request to have it given back to us. And I took that as a awfully, awfully polite no. So in an effort, again, to gift the citizens of Loganville with something that they told us they liked and wanted, an effort was made to get the monies donated to get this done. We're there. We're at the point now we've got the money to pay for the statue, but there's a bigger issue. And again, this was never supposed to be a divisive issue. And I know in our town people put their heels in and they fight to the death, obviously. I would like to vote no, we will not allow the elk on city property. I will take the funds that was raised and give it back to the generous people who took my vision or our vision a little bit, and agreed that it was a gift to the citizens of Loganville. And they never wanted their names to be in controversy. And it just really is frustrating from where I sit that there are people who will weaponize a good intent. I can't see everybody's heart, but I suspect there's some dark places in some of those hearts, and I hate it, but that's the world we live in. So I will withdraw the elk. I will refund the money back to those kind folks that were generous enough, because I know in their heart they did not want anything divisive. They did not want to cause controversy in our city. And that's the overriding rule for me. So whatever the outcome of this is in the future, we'll have to wait and see. I appreciate the support on this. I understand the concern. I could make some coy comments now, especially about Jay's comment, but I won't do that. We're here to build. Do what? Well, I would say, Jay, if it was a dumb idea, it would have come from you. But anyway, with that said, we're here to work together. We're not here to work against each other. And it's just a sad day, but that's okay. Life will go on. We've lived over 100 years without that elk. And just for those who are interested, if you drive downtown, there are 2 elk roaming our streets 24/7, and they're on the mural that's on the side of the barbershop. So it's not something new, but again, I do appreciate the support of those that supported it. I understand both sides, and I just don't want the controversy, and I don't want those people who donated their money, let their money speak for them, to be in the middle of a controversy. That is my overriding thought process. So the elk is now dead. Okay, can we move on? Okay, the next topic on the agenda is the city manager's report, although we're going to go back, I guess, and the mayor and council items is discussion of directives for marketing firm. And we're open for that. We'll do whatever we need to do. I have to tell you, in my heart of hearts, I don't know that we're ready for this. I don't want this to be where we spend some more money and we get another plan, and arguably any plan is not going to be the plan that I draw up or any one of the council draws up. It's going to be a collection of those thoughts. And if the council is not flexible to accepting a compromised thought process, then I don't know that we're ready, honestly. But that's not up to me, that's up to your council.
I think before you take us all to task for something that we haven't discussed yet, that we should probably talk about it.
I agree.
So it is open for me to
Sure.
discuss.
Please.
I'm going to come up front. It's easier for me to look at everybody than craning my head. I feel like I'm leaving the people behind me behind.
Danny, would you like to be our subscriber?
I'd be a hard no, sir. I will pick someone for that.
All right.
Robbie. Oh, you're gonna do it? Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll
Okay.
get you the pins.
And what we'd like to... What we'd like to do is to concrete today those things that we're in agreement with and sort of have them on the board. If it's a controversial issue, we'll leave it off the board.
Well, I thought, and Brandon, I mean, what is our goal today?
Our goal is to come up with
You're not on.
There we go. The overall plan for today is to go through this questionnaire, 'cause I think is a good starting point to get us all moving in the same direction. I want us all to, I guess before I speak, we should all just take a big breath in today's meeting, and then we take this directive and we can give it to whichever firm we decide to choose. Does that sound?
Yeah, so and you and I talked about it yesterday. I think what we're trying to do is to figure out what we want from a firm that we hire.
Yes.
Yes, not necessarily we want to use this property or this town green,
Exactly.
or we're just trying to give marching orders to a firm.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Hey, Brandon, I also had
Yeah.
a question that, are we gonna take these questions and give them to both Hadow and Sizemore, and, or we're just giving these only to Sizemore?
It's up to the council. I mean, I wouldn't see it being,
That's what I wasn't sure what today was, that's why I didn't know what direction we were going in, so I just have a lot of random notes.
oh, no, that's fine, because this is really just their question that they sent us, and after reading them, and working on them, they were pretty good questions. There's a lot of questions that I think that we need to have answered, obviously, before we hire any firm. So if we decide which one, we could send it to both, I was think, but they
At
didn't
our
come from,
At our last meeting, Brandon, I was under the impression that while everybody liked parts of both companies, seemed to be the consensus was that Sizemore had more potential to do what we wanted to have done. Is that wrong? Or
no, you are correct, but we only voted to hire a firm, but we didn't pick which firm. Because we wanted the opportunity to make sure that we did our due diligence and all kind of looked into them personally and all that kind of deal. After today, if we want to decide on a firm, we can. But I kind of want to know what our marching orders are for that firm first, no matter which one we pick. Does that seem fair? That seem to be kind of what we're wanting to get at. So we have the questionnaire here, and it's really just I know we all took this in different ways and everything, but the first question is describe the story you want to tell at the end of the day. When people come downtown, that kind of deal. And y'all all know I ran on small town feel, so that's a lot of what my answer is. Let me find in my notes, sorry. But we like to have a downtown that encapsulates our small town feel, showcasing the history, the attractiveness, and a place our citizens can be proud of and want to support. And I know that's very broad, because I think it gets more technical later. But I think that's like, we can add to that. I'm not saying we have to use mine. That was just an example of what the story that I think that we're kind of going for. But what's y'all's thoughts on that?
I believe, if you look at everybody's notes, I'd be willing to bet you we're all on that same trend line.
Yeah, I mean, my very first one says historic preservation with an asterisk, so.
Oh, yeah. We need to save as much history as we can. And I know this is probably a talk further down the line, but I would like to do something with the historic well to actually make it more Instagrammable. All right. Well, the first one was easy. You want me to write all this down so we can have it, so we can send it to them? I can write it down. It'll just take me an extra few minutes, and if I, please, my handwriting is very poor, so, and my spelling is also atrocious. All right. For question number one.
Is Robbie gonna volunteer? He said no.
Putting the questions up there, so we can all see.
Just write them on here? Okay, that's fine. Yes, I do too.
If we all send you our notes when we're done, then you'll have more reference.
Yeah, that's perfect. And these next two questions, I myself kind of got mixed up on a little bit. I wasn't sure what tested and explored was trying to get at. I guess if we already had ideas, that would be what was tested. And what was explored is something that we don't really have ideas on yet. We just know we have to explore it because we don't know what we're going to do yet with it. So for example, like testing would be moving the town green or enlarging, enhancing the current location of town green, seeing how much it would cost to keep it where it is versus how much it would be to move it somewhere else and where the best location for that would be.
Yeah, I said on that one, I said what I wanted tested was the feasibility of restaurants and retail, the minimum and maximum amount of a housing that could be supported, and what sort of development or developer that would attract based on the answers to the first two.
That's a great one. Anyone want to add to either one of what we came up with? Or does anyone else have any more that would want to be tested?
The one question that I had is, when the LDA presented their plan, do we want to show whichever company is selected that plan if they think it's viable or not, and if not, what they would replace it with? And mainly, we're talking about 254 Main. I mean, we got to do something to get that empty hole done. Something's got to go
You
there.
know, obviously, I do like that plan because I think it has retail on the bottom, living on top. So I think that's kind of more what's acceptable if we're going to have living downtown. If we have it above retail, I think it's an easier sell because, you know, someone whoever potentially could own the shop and the place upstairs. I don't know, because I know a lot in Monroe, you know, they bought all that out and turned it into the Wayfarer Hotel. So now it's like a boutique kind of hotel kind of thing. And it works wonders for downtown. A lot of people come antiquing and actually seek out Monroe because they can stay there and go
Yep.
antiquing. And same thing, they have a wedding venue in town, so people like to stay at the Wayfarer because, and there's all those right there above, right past Scoops, above all that. A lot of that is a Wayfarer.
Yeah.
So
I
it
mean, I
could
think
be-
we'd give them, everything. I mean, even, you know, we paid for that Howdow financial report, you know, 2 years ago, and, you know, that's great information. You know, I don't want them to reinvent the wheel, but they at least have data to go on, so.
It might be a little outdated data, but I do believe that we need to give it all
Correct.
to them.
It's a good jumping off spot.
In question 7, facts you can send ahead of time, we'll probably come back to that, Bill, but yes. Anything else tested?
Another thing that I've got on my thought process, and Daniel, excuse me, I'm sorry, I just turned it off. Daniel will have to share us where this process is. To get to downtown we want, I believe Main Street is going to have to come off the state route system.
That's,
And to do that, how are we going to do it? And if we don't do it, how are we going to work around it? I don't know that there's a way to work around it.
I get that, and that's actually coming up later in another question.
Okay. Which
Because
question?
challenges you are aware of.
Okay?
That is gonna be one of our
That's fair.
main challenges. I'm not trying to silence anybody. I just
Oh, no,
wanna
no.
Try and keep it as orderly as possible. So we kind of just want to get ideas right now, and then we'll face challenges and studies and all that later on. Anything else I'd like to be tested?
So should we show whichever company the 254 plan? I think Bill thinks we should show them everything we got.
I think we should.
Any problem if we do? Because I don't want it to be shown if everybody is
That
going to
one
be
might
against
even
it.
be close to being revised or anything now, because it was just an idea. It was just
I know,
putting citizens' ideas from the past on the paper, just so people could kind of see it.
but I want it to
Kinda
be
see the
viewed that way if we
direction
do
that
it.
we want it to go.
I don't have a problem sharing, like Bill said, we should share everything, but I don't want to influence a group, because they
Yeah.
may have an idea.
Because they might say the library might go best there, or,
So, I
you
mean,
know,
I don't want to
whatever.
influence them with plans we have, but I do agree with showing them everything.
Yeah.
But not presented as this is what we want to do, and
Exactly.
they have to
Agreed,
fit it in.
agreed, absolutely.
Because I don't
No
want to lead
intent.
them, I want to get their best case scenario, because they know what will work, kind of idea. But I
Brandon?
think that idea kind of shows more in line kind of what we all kind of like with living up in retail on the bottom.
Okay, my question, Brandon, is does everybody on the council, have you seen the plans for the 254, like, the LDA presented? Has everybody up here seen it?
I believe so.
Okay.
I don't want to speak for anybody, but I believe most of us have. So explored. This is kind of all exploratory. This is all down the road kind of stuff. So I put, we need to know the best location on city-owned properties for placement of library, because that's something that we have to get explored to know the best location. I don't want to put it somewhere and then have to move it 10, 20 years down the line. That picture right there is actually from an even older study that we just used to show kind of, and then I'm not trying to kick up dust here, but exploring the use of the current city hall location permanently versus the cost to move and build city hall on another city-owned property. And because I don't know the value of this land versus another piece of land, if if this land is more usable to somebody to come downtown and do stuff, we need to explore that versus keeping everything here and not moving to a less like monetary value kind of land or something like that kind of deal.
Or explore what you could do with the building, you know?
Exactly, yeah. They might
Give
say,
us some
oh,
options.
what are our options? Yep.
Well,
Go ahead. No, please go ahead.
you know, as you said, everybody interprets these questions differently.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was looking at what would I like explored, I would like to see if they could explore using form-based code. Like
Okay.
we would create like we have to set boundaries for downtown, where that's gonna be. I think we have the Main Street overlay district.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been researching a lot lately on what's called form-based code versus our standard ordinances and things. And I would like to explore the two different looks based on what our code is now versus if we use a form-based code system, how
Okay.
that would change the plans.
What is form-based code?
It's basically what it sounds like.
Like boilerplate kind of code?
Form, I tried to write a short definition, where they addressed, I can't even read it without my glasses on, addressed the relationship between building facades and the public realm, the form and the mass of the buildings in relation to one another and the scale and types of streets and blocks. So in other words, like our code says it has to be this many feet from setback and this, but where form-based code is more they look at an overall project and basically form over function, but where it looks better, so you're
So
using
it's more
wider
about
streets, more,
aesthetics.
yes,
Okay.
exactly.
I got it.
So
Not building code,
yeah,
aesthetics.
so, because they
Okay.
have to take into account our building code in any
Yes.
plan they do. But form-based code is becoming very popular because back originally, when the country was being settled, we used to go in, like, if you look at Manhattan, it's all blocks.
Yeah.
And that's basically where they set the roads and the streets first, and then they did the buildings, where some buildings could be up closer. So you're not really going by your code. Now, they still have to build to our standards,
Mm-hmm.
but you're looking at a more form, how it's gonna look.
Yeah,
More so.
overall.
Like a master plan.
Perception.
Like an overall master plan.
Yeah, but
downtown.
it's different. When you ask them, they'll know what you're talking about. So I'd like to see the two. Maybe,
All a
yeah.
certain look.
yeah,
Yeah, because I do want them all to be cohesive and all, I'm gonna say they all have to look exactly alike because, you know, and even with variation in heights, because, you know, I went and toured a lot of downtowns. I know Melanie and a lot of us have. But, you know, where they shoot Walking Dead, I can never say the name of that city. But, you know, they have a beautiful one street downtown and it all dead ends into like a park kind of deal. And they have 3-story next to a 2-story, next to a 1-story, goes back to 2. It kind of goes all over. It looks cohesive, but it's not all uniform. It's like
Got it.
block
right,
buildings.
and that's what, if you go
Yeah.
by our code, you're gonna tend to get that, because our
Exactly.
buildings, 2 stories, whatever. Form-based code, it's really more of the perception of it. So it's gonna be
Mm-hmm.
wider sidewalks with trees and your hidden parking and things
Yep.
like that. So you have everything you need. It just is more appealing to the eye.
Yeah.
And along with Melanie sent last night about that Main Streets America, I mean, I want to get something out of it that it's, you know, at least a concept along, I mean, if we can do something with Main Street, it'll spawn into other areas
Yes.
and grow our city. So I really want to see some type of, you know, use of this whole Main Street from 78 to 20.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, like what you said, I mean, the two things I want to see explored are, of all the land that the city owns, what makes the most sense to start with?
Mm-hmm.
And what do we put there? And then, what will it support? What is our infrastructure support? What can we do to attract the type of businesses we want? So if we
Yes.
say, okay, we want to start with 254 Main Street, great. Well, if that's what we start with and we decide of all the land, that's the piece we should start with, what do we need to do change-wise, infrastructure-wise to bring that up? So it's like a hand-in-hand, you know, you can't, if they said we should do with this acreage first, well, that's great, except if it takes $6 million in infrastructure to get it up to speed.
get
So it's
the
got to
one
kind of be a
property.
hand-in-hand thing.
Yeah. I understand that completely.
Another thing would be nice for them to answer for us is, if the decision was made, could our old historic buildings downtown be moved? I don't know if they can physically be moved.
I crawled underneath some the other day and, no.
That's going to be another issue down the road.
Well, obviously, keeping the historic Main Street, the historic Main Street, and further on down the road, if we can get the state designation off of that highway, we could do some slanted on-street parking kind of deal, maybe do some, wider sidewalks, do like some streetscapes, some planters, stuff like that. It would push all the buildings past the historic Main Street off a little bit, but I think overall, it'd make a lot better connectivity to the rest of the town. It gives a good starting point to put other sidewalks on system and stuff like that.
I just want everybody to be aware that could very possibly be a limitation. what
You
we
can see
already
it as
have.
a limitation. I kind of see it as a positive.
Can be a
Because they kind of will delineate, this is our historic area, this is our new area that we want to match the historic area. So I think they'll complement each other, especially if we do this right. I don't want to put new buildings in that don't look good against the older buildings, especially now that a lot of them have been painted and stuff like that, and hopefully the maintenance and all stays up on it.
Great.
Yes.
So we're wanting what's there now to match what we want to come up. So does that mean we would want to explore what it would take to do a facelift on the buildings that we have now that are there?
Talking about
And
the
that's-
ones
huh?
that the city own?
No, I'm talking about the downtown that we already have now. I mean,
We've explored that in the past, and I believe Danny might have to correct me if I misstep here. But we did try a program, but they do have to buy into the program. It's the Main Street Foundation. Well, I don't know if that's Main Street Foundation, but it was one of them. And they would have to put in a certain percentage, and then they would get fees to do that. But we can't go on someone else's property
Yeah, I
and
underst-
just be like, hey,
Yeah, I
we're gonna
understand
paint
that.
your building today. you
yeah,
know,
I
kinda
understand that,
deal.
but I was just wondering if we want to incorporate the whole downtown, the whole street, then we're gonna have to try to see if we can't get them on board with, making some maybe improvements as far as the way they look.
Yeah.
You know,
And I think we should manage
that's
our
something we need to explore.
expectations a little bit, because they may say, yeah, it's feasible to do that, or it's possible to do that, but you might not get anyone who wants to do that.
Correct.
So you might have to like settle for only doing like the front and like whatever is seen to
Right.
match, and like do the back.
And that's
you
what
know,
I
that
was
people aren't
talking
gonna
about,
see
just the
kinda
front
deal.
part of the buildings, not the whole works.
Yeah, I would say anything that people can see.
And
would
then
have
the
to-
other thing I had down here was parking issue, if we need to do a parking, explore doing a parking deck or someplace, because if we're gonna build the downtown that we're envisioning,
The parking
and
lot
we're gonna
concept.
have people that come, that don't even live in the city, to come visit our city, we've gotta have a place for them to park.
Yeah, if we're gonna be a destination downtown, which I think is what we all really kind of want to be, is, and I could be wrong on that, but we're gonna need parking to handle the people coming into Main Street. And I'm not a big fan of parking decks myself personally. I know they're prohibitively expensive, but I don't see why that would hurt to explore options, even doing like hidden parking somewhere and hiding it with like landscaping and stuff like that. It's something that we could explore, definitely. Because I know a slip deck would kind of be the improvements of both, form and aesthetics, but that is very prohibitively expensive.
I know.
But having an area, like say, I don't know, might say, well, we recommend, and I'm just speaking out here, maybe 254 Main Street, yeah, it might work on the front side doing that, but since y'all need more parking, the city might want to keep parking here in the future in case y'all ever do have to go to the deck. Then you could then add a deck later, and you'd already have a location where you could do one versus selling the land to somebody and then putting a parking lot and not meet our parking needs in the future. That, I don't know. I'm just spitballing here that they might make recommendations. I have no clue what they're gonna recommend. Any other things y'all would like to explore or tested? So we're looking for a small town, saving our history, having the new buildings match as best as possible with the older buildings so they can blend together aesthetically. Now, I know this is gonna come up. I know we're gonna have to talk about it, but apartments. I know we're all against standalone apartments. We don't want apartment complexes. But they're going to test like Ann said, the amount of living that we're gonna need on Main Street. Yeah, what we would support, what the citizens would support, and a lot of that is in the CAG survey that we're gonna send to them as well. And then when we do the charrette, the citizens, if we choose to go with, Haddow didn't have a charrette, but, the other one did, Sizemore Group. So at the charrette, citizens could come in and they would take notes on the charrette, and then they'd really have 3 ways, or 2 ways to get input in as well. But, you know, lofts over retail, I think we're all on board with something like that. Possibly row homes, would that be something that we could live with if that comes up? I
You're
just want them
talking
to
about the
come
little
up.
cottages like they build in Monroe, is that what you're talking about? The
Yeah,
little
we can do something like
cottages?
that, yeah. The row homes are actually kind of
Yeah.
attached, but they do have like a front and backyard. But, you know, like in Chicago, they have a lot of like, that's the first one that came to mind.
Okay.
But they have like the ones that are attaching, but they're their own individual homes. They just have like a firewall, you know, in between
Right.
each
That's what I was
one.
gonna say. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I would wanna see detached, like individual homes, not, because it's, at the end of the day, a townhouse is an apartment, theoretically. I'd like to see individual.
I
Because
just don't
this is
wanna,
Loganville. I mean, you go
Yeah.
back to the day that we were established, and if we're talking about staying historically linked to our past, we didn't have townhouses and things back then. We had little cottages, little mill houses. The railroad came through town. And so I'd like to continue to keep that historic feeling, that old, small-town feeling. Once you start with row houses, which are essentially gonna end up probably looking like townhouses, you're changing the whole feel of what we're trying to accomplish.
what if we, you know, like we said, making them match our historic downtown, so people wouldn't even know that they're row homes, they'll probably just think that I'm not trying to pull one over on anybody or anything like that. I'm saying if we make them match our historic downtown though, you know, it might be more feasible for something like that, because I don't know. They might say, hey, there's no way to possibly do that if we don't have some more, if we do detached homes, it might be impossible to get this done. They might not, they might say it's possible, but you're gonna have to heavily discount the land, and then you won't be able to get anything for infrastructure and stuff like that. So I don't really wanna handcuff them, at the same time, we can lead with that. And we can see if that's even feasible, so we probably put that, you know, under explored, like, under explored, detach, and loss above, retail. We could lead with that, but I just want, I was like managing expectations. They might come back and say, we've explored it, it's not your best option, but we're gonna go in heavy saying no standalone apartment complexes.
I agree. I have a follow-up question. Is it the aesthetics or the density that you're worried about, or both? And if it's
The-
both, which
it's
is,
the aesthetics.
okay,
And as far as density, if we're gonna build the little cottages, I'm okay with allowing a heavier density.
okay,
Because you go to Monroe, they barely have a third of an acre. I mean, it's maybe probably a
Right.
quarter or a fifth of an acre. But each house is its own house. It's a house. It's not I'm living with 10 other people in this row. It's my house.
yeah, I mean, you know, I've lived in Philly, or not pretty, but I think aesthetically, if we can make it look like it went with the historic, I'd be okay with that.
I mean, I
We
would
could at
look
least
at
look
it.
at
I
it,
would
yeah.
look at it.
Okay.
I would look
Okay.
at it.
Yeah,
Okay. Any other thing under explored or tested that y'all can think of? Think we're good there? Challenges we're aware of. And I know Danny's probably gonna have to speak in on this one as well. But obviously, Skip's already talked about we need to get an alternative truck route so that we can own our main street essentially. So we could do parking on the side, like, you know, Monroe streetscape, stuff like that, that won't fly currently. But from what I've been hearing, they're not going to go with that possibility until they kind of have to. So once we get people coming in and buying in and we give them a plan about what's going to be happening downtown and seeing that there's money coming in, so it's actually a project that is, you know, funded-ish, then there'll be a lot of fire in them, I guess you would say, to go ahead and start looking at other options. But there were 2 options, I believe Brand Road and 78 and 20 But if we take away a traffic light from Quick Trip, lawyers are probably gonna get involved. So that's probably not the option that they're going to choose. And please correct me if I'm wrong on any of this or anywhere that we could,
Well, the other one that was mentioned back in the day was C.S. Floyd being the new state route, but I probably have to redo that whole street if
Right.
that happened.
Well, and then the current thinking is that bringing it down, just like you said, Quick Trip, but it would actually have to relocate that intersection, and that's still one of our alternatives that we're looking at.
okay.
So
So that is still a possibility.
it is still a possibility.
Okay.
And, you know, I go along, I mean, the obvious is and the challenges, I mean, obviously, it's not just parking on the street, it's parking in general. The infrastructure, certainly, as Ann mentioned, is also a challenge. But I guess when we convey this to the team, it's this whole struggle with the residential. What's the right balance, and how do you, knowing our struggle, we don't want a lot of density downtown. Finding that right amount to support what we have downtown without
Yeah.
being total residential.
Because if we do less living downtown, we'd need more parking, I would think. We get to do actual park and walk. So then that might consist of some kind of deck or something. So, but I don't know. Oh, yep, sorry.
Well, some of the challenges I looked at is obviously the infrastructure.
Infrastructure.
Danny, isn't our Main Street, in the infrastructure under Main Street like over 100 years old? So that would have to that's definitely a challenge we're gonna have to look at. Again, like I had traffic, getting traffic off Main Street. But then one that's a challenge for me that I've harped on for years, we need to address the blight. And we need to figure out a way to turn our blight into a positive economic asset. So I would like to see them look at blighted buildings. I've asked about blight tax before and things like that. So how can we address this blight? That's one of the ways that we can actually change the look by addressing that. So, I mean, that's definitely gonna be a challenge.
I get you, it's near and dear to my heart as well. And to be honest, I think we could do that. It's gonna make a lot of people mad. But, I mean, it could help. But at the same time, if we get plans going downtown, I think a lot of the problem is with especially the ones that are wanting to sell now, good people, and I know that as their building, they can ask what they want to for it, and they're, you know, dead set on selling it for a higher price than what most investors would want to go in and purchase them for, because you gotta redo the whole flooring structure. That's $60,000, because you gotta take everything out and build it back up from the bottom. And I know that because I crawled underneath one the other day that I actually thought about purchasing, and go ahead, since I gotta take the floor out and everything, put in grease traps, stuff like that, so we could get a restaurant to come in town. But we're just so far apart on the price. So if we go ahead and building other stuff that raises the values of those, so they could get the price that they want for it, and then the new people will actually come in and have to bring it up to code and all that kind of stuff. Because I don't think it's fair to, you know, harm a family that, I'm not saying like emotionally, but, you know, financially, who's owned these buildings since, you know, 80s, 70s, 60s. The one I was looking at was built in 1880 kind of deal. So I think capitalism actually helps in this situation, because if we start doing stuff down here, it will naturally increase the values and want people to spend more money in there, because say they're renting for, you know, $1,500 in an older building, and say a new building comes up and they're at 17, 18, 19, 20, or 2,000. They're like, well, we're just gonna go there because it's all new. We don't have to worry about uneven floors and stuff like that. So that would force the people who currently own them either to sell them because they don't want to do the work, or fix them up to try and get tenants in there again. That's just my feelings on it. What do y'all think about blight tax and stuff like that?
My concern about blight tax, I know it could be an incentive, but if they're not fixing up their buildings because they can't afford to fix them up, then how are they going to pay a blight tax? And is blight determined by a set of subjective things that we say? Or is it a code? It's a code, okay, so it's a definition in our code about what blight is. I mean, we could always do a blight tax, but, and I know you're not gonna like this, but if you have a piece of property that nobody will deal with, we can always eminent domain it.
Because they owe
Don't
so
hit me.
much in
But I
blight
mean-
tax.
But I mean, at what point, if you've tried to play ball and tried to play ball and tried to play ball, and you put a blight tax on it, I mean, you don't want one, I was gonna say turret. You don't want one weed in a flower bed, how's that?
Well, I think we already have a blight ordinance, and Tim can share that with us about what we could not do. But I don't think that we're in a position where we want to be just selective and pick out one or two things when we've got others around either. So,
So it would have to be citywide, correct?
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's difficult. Tim, you want to address that real quickly? Or take as much time as you want, really.
So the city already has a blight ordinance, and the blight tax is set by the state, but it's so minimal that it's not an incentive for the property owners to fix up their property. So it's not a arbitrary number that the city council can set. It's set by the state of how much you can charge. So it's really not worth the effort to do a blight tax, but we do have other means of notice of violation, citation, they have to pay a fine, but still, if they don't have the money to fix up their building, are they gonna have the money to pay $1,000 fine, you know? It basically all comes down to the property owner and, what they value downtown looking like. Because a lot of them, I believe, just don't care, because they've owned them buildings forever, and they just don't do no work to them, so.
Well, they also require a lot of work as well, because they are so old. So, anything else?
Tim, doesn't the blight ordinance, refresh me a little bit, doesn't that allow us to charge 7 times the normal property tax? But that money has to go back into making the area better.
But that's based on, 40% assessed value.
Right.
So, whatever their property is assessed at, you can only charge that blight tax on 40% of that value, so.
Well, I know that's what Ball Ground used to kickstart their redevelopment of their downtown. They started working with the blight tax, and the families that had owned those buildings for generations decided to sell them, and that's what ended up giving the turnaround and starting. And I'm not saying that we want to push them out, I'm just saying that
Yeah,
that's one thing, though, that's definitely a challenge that we've got to be aware of, that we have.
a lot of our history in this town is the people and the families that have been here a very long time. And I know a lot of them, I know Melanie know a lot of them, I know a lot of us know a lot of them. I mean, we can do what we think is right, but I don't want to punish a family that's been here that long, and they are a part of the fabric of this community and a part of this town.
And that's why I've got another one here. Is there any way that we can partner with existing, so challenges that we're aware of, is there not a way that, like you said, I know there was a program before, but if we're starting from scratch, put the past in the past, and I think we'll get to that with funding or whatever in a minute, but is there any way that we can come up with, I know Robbie's looked at it for me before about grants and things like that. I've got some folks now that would like to do something with their buildings on Main Street, but there's just not a lot of money. So is one of the
Owners-
things that the challenges we're aware of is money to help.
Are you, the people that you're talking about, are they the owners of the building or the
No,
people
they're-
who
no, they're the
lease?
owners.
Okay. Yeah, there's something especially, Robbie is not back here, I believe. But I know this came up when we were on the Development Authority. But they have to put in 40%? Is that what it is?
Well, the answer to the question is there is funding available to help people redo their buildings, and specifics, we can get to it later, but there is money is available, but there's going to be some out-of-pocket money for those
Yeah.
people who own the buildings with that.
And if we get the grant, if we don't use it, we lose it. It's a time limit kind of thing. You have so long to hold on to it.
Well, I've actually given them the application for the Georgia Cities Foundation.
Yeah, yeah.
But I didn't
really
know if
good
there was
people.
other,
Mhm.
avenues that we can look at moving forward with this project. If there's, where it says, are there known funding sources? Is this something that this company or either one of these can help us find the money that they're willing to invest? They just, you
I
know.
think Georgia City is that not very inexpensive loans versus
Yeah,
grants?
it's what?
There are
3
grants
They're
out
looking,
there.
they'll take whatever help they can
Yeah,
get.
Well, I
it's like
understand there are grants out
3.5,
there.
I believe, right now, which is very good compared to banks. And that's a way that we could help people.
But I do truly
And we
believe-
do have the business summit or business after hours coming up. And I think they might, I'm hoping, I'm gonna see if they're gonna bring that up in case there are any local business owners that do want to utilize that. But especially in downtown, it's very strict rules. It has to be downtown for Georgia Cities Foundation. And same thing with the Main Street program. And a lot with the Main Street program, it kind of locks you in. We've used the Georgia ones before, and they're the ones that did this. And once you do that, you get locked into a lot of things, and there might be some business owners, we have to get consensus, because someone might not want to adhere to the rules, because it is kind of a stricter program kind of deal. And I don't want to, go down that avenue unless we know we have participation.
Just as a last word on the Blythe thing, I do honestly believe that ordinance did help us get Goodwill positioned in their building that had been sitting empty for a long time, but just for info for everybody.
Any other challenges? We got infrastructure, Main Street designation, current buildings need to be more attractive, so we need to try and influence that. Is there any more that I'm missing? I think I am. No, we're good with those. Let's see if I put any more. Do you think having a lack of a downtown director would be a challenge, or no, not really?
I couldn't hear you.
Oh,
She was-
sorry.
That's
Having a lack of a downtown director, you think that could be a hindrance? Or if we're gonna go with a firm, they're gonna be handling it anyways, but you think it's okay?
Well, I
Okay.
mean, I think it's fine, but everything that I was reading online, just about every successful redevelopment had a downtown manager.
There are
I've
some
not
cities
found
that
it where
don't,
the city
but-
did it themselves. I mean, they had somebody dedicated to doing that. So I
Mhm.
think we are gonna come to a time, we're gonna have to. I mean, Danny's got a full plate with everything he
Yeah.
does. And to have somebody that dedicated to it, that is their sole purpose, I think there's gonna come a time. It might not be right now, but there is gonna come a time when that's gonna be an absolute necessity for this to move forward.
And
Okay.
Linda and I were talking about this too. I mean, it's, we got to get a first step one way or the other. Downtown manager, we had good candidates and just didn't move forward. But, maybe as we get things, as we keep moving this forward and maybe we get something moving with the city, maybe that makes it easier to get a downtown manager. So,
Yeah.
I don't think it's off the table. I think it's just, we just got to keep moving forward as opposed to sitting down and doing nothing.
And I have kind of off-the-wall challenges that I'm sure we're all aware of, is we need a plan that our citizens and the council can go forward with. Because if we don't have support, it's not going to happen. But I know that's kind of we all know that. I just wanted to put that out there, that is a known challenge as well. Known funding sources. I guess Robbie's not here. I seen if he had some things he was working on. I know of some USDA. Reggie actually lives here in town. But we are technically under their population limit right now. Next census, we might not be, but they do have some loan opportunities there. And like Melanie said, there's Main Street. There's a lot of other stuff. But it all depends on what we're doing. If we're, like, say they come back and say it's best to leave Town Green where it is, we just expand it and all that kind of stuff, then that's a different grant program than moving it. But I think most of our known funding sources will be selling of city property. the profit that we get from that. Because I know we're not going to be raising millage rates or anything for any of this.
So you want to sell, so we would be looking at which properties that we would want to sell to pay for what projects, correct?
If we want to
Right,
sell,
that's what I'm
yeah.
saying, so, because when you're saying known funding sources, funding, so that we're all on the same page, so what are we looking at funding, like just the new town green, or, I mean, so in other words, if you were gonna build a new city hall, you're obviously gonna have to sell just about all your property to pay for that. So that's what I'm saying, we gotta come up with what plan, what our plan is, our master plan. And then, obviously, you're not doing everything at once. I mean, you're talking about 10, 15, 20 years of this, because you're gonna have to fund it as you go. But when, funding options, funding sources, a lot of this, if you're selling 254 Main Street to a developer, we're not funding anything, because we're selling the property, they're building it.
Yeah, but
So
then we
when
could-
it says, are there known funding sources, like you just said, I mean, Monroe got a $2.4 million grant for their town green. So I think are there known sources, funding sources? That's kind of putting the cart before the horse right now. We don't know what the projects are we want to build, or what we want to do, or what we want to do first.
Yeah, and we could say that to them. We could say, hey, if we need to move town green, then we'll know more funding opportunities
Right.
at that time. Because if we could apply for that one, we could apply for other ones. And really, we just, if we have a plan in place and we know we're moving forward, then they're more likely to fund something than hypothetically, hey, if we were doing this, would this be possible to be funded? Kind of deal. They're not gonna waste their time until they know that it's a actual project on the books.
One of the questions that this brings up to me is, and Danny will have to answer this for us, how much will our current infrastructure support downtown? And when do we need to make those changes, which I suspect should have already been made?
It really just depends on what comes, because every building's different, the fire flow's different, sewer's different. But yes, there will need to be changes to the infrastructure, for sure. On the water, we know the water line's undersized currently. We know that we're gonna have to probably upgrade the sewer, depending on what comes. You have a restaurant versus a hotel, it's two different needs, as far as the usage of sewer and water. But yeah, all that will have to be, paid for, either by a developer or by, if it's a city project, the city would pay for it. If it's a development, then they would pay their share of the development cost towards that. But to say that we're not gonna be without paying, that would be a false statement, I feel. I think we would have to spend some money in infrastructure to
Will,
upgrade it.
will the library, and again, we've committed to being downtown somewhere. Now, we don't know where, but will
Just
that,
depends on where it goes, Mayor, because, at this location, we did run an 8-inch line, water line for flow for this building. It didn't have the fire flow when we moved in it. We fixed that. We put a sprinkler system, as you can see in the ceiling. So if it was to say to go hypothetically here, yes, there would be no infrastructure needs because we already have them. But if it was to go where town green is now, I would say there would need to be some major upgrades to the infrastructure in that location. It's just based on where it's at, so.
so when that decision's made, we need to know those options as well as what's gonna be the effect on cost of infrastructure.
Would it be easier, or I won't say easier, no, this is gonna be easy, but cheaper if we start like on say this end and work our way to the current main town green, or would it be better to start there and then go in and redo everything and then add things online as they come?
I really think we're just getting ahead of ourselves. I think we come up with a master plan first and then decide.
We can't do that.
This is what we're gonna do and work towards that. But if we say here, you know as well as I do, our architectural's like, well, that's nice, but this is what you need to do first.
Yeah.
I made that mistake, and now let them tell us what we should do because they're the experts.
Agreed.
That's
Well, the other
smart.
thing too, Melanie, to your question, I don't think that even if we sold all the property, that we have enough funds to build a city hall. I think we're looking at a bond or some sort of loan anyway, which we would a grant wouldn't cover that. So I do think that that's the other funding source. And we still have a good credit rating and we can get the money. So however much that we would need, et cetera, we could do.
So, the other thing with funding, I mean, not funding, but, some cities have have actually built structures that they've ended up leasing, and I know that can be a mixed bag. I just think we ought to kind of know what, where our feelings are on that. You know, is that something, and maybe that's way down the road, but is that something that we would entertain at some point?
If you were gonna do that, you would definitely have to have a downtown manager. If you're talking about us build buildings and we're leasing them out and we become landlords, is that what you were saying?
But essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
But arguably would go before the authority.
Yeah, the LDA.
So really, the city council does, I mean, I guess you could do that, but arguably, most successful downtowns that I spoke with, somehow those projects are in the development authority's name. They're the real estate arm, if you will, and they make those payments to the authority, and then the authority in that city will make an agreement to do it's called a pilot program, a payment in lieu of taxes. They do it for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. A lot of your big corporations get those tax incentives, and instead of paying taxes, they pay the development authority, which pays that government for the sources of infrastructure. But there's so many funding options. You just don't know until you know what you're going to do, until you can decide, because there's grants, there's taxes, there's pilot programs, there's several incentives. I just think, a firm's going to be aware of those, and when that time comes that, hey, this is what we're going to build, that's when to say that, hey, this is your funding sources. But I think you all need to realize that some point sales tax not sales tax, property tax owners, millage rates is going to be tied to those bonds.
Yeah.
So to say that it would never raise the millage rate, I would not say that. The goal is not to raise,
Yeah, that's the goal.
but when you do a bond, for some of you who have not been through that process, I know Melanie, you have not been through a bond, but the city council is pledging millage rates if we fault on the bond. So just for FYI, just make sure y'all understand that, because to say that we're not going to spend any money on a development, I think that would be a foolish statement to make from anyone.
Yeah, but we do need to invest in our downtown to make sure
We do. I
investors that.
agree. I mean,
Yeah.
if you put 100,000 in infrastructure, you just spent city's money. So
Yeah.
to say that we're not going to spend city money, I think is a statement we don't need to be made, because we don't know what we're going to do until we have a plan that y'all all approve and say, hey, this is what we can endorse, and this is what we're going to spend on this plan. It comes in section. I think we just really need to focus on a good group that y'all feel solid with, get a solid plan that you all, because guess what? Next year, going to be elections, and then the year after that, January, you're going to have possibly 3 new council members. We just need to find a plan that we all agree on, and let's move forward with that.
So stakeholders, I guess that comes down the line too, but I would obviously say the downtown businesses and the churches, anything that's, right there near them, maybe just the surrounding areas. I don't want to, scare people with people just going randomly knocking on doors or anything, but they'd actually reach out to them maybe through mail and be like, hey, let us know your thoughts on this or something, because we're doing a survey and we just like to know the surrounding area's opinion. Now, the citizens themselves, they're going to have, like I said earlier, the 2 opportunities. They've already had the CAG, and they're going to have the charrette that they can come and look and make notes on, stuff like that. So I don't think we have to do
I know GDOT just had meetings with the stakeholders of 20 with the right-of-ways, and that seemed to have worked very well. I believe it would be nice, or be productive, if the company we chooses has a meeting maybe at the Ag Building with the current property owners and just find out what their interests are, if there is any.
Makes sense.
Get it into a neutral location. I'd hate for them to knock on people's doors and start other things going on, but I'd prefer that.
So we come up with the stakeholders and then need them to be interviewed. And then they can also attend the session as well, or the thing. So that's the way we're leaning on that. Okay. Are there any other stakeholders I might have left out or anything? That's what. I think that'd be pretty much it. That seems pretty self-explanatory there. What facts can you send ahead of time or have available at the charrette? I would like to send it ahead of time to give them a heads up so they can go ahead and know a lot of that. I know a lot of it's already on our city website, but I know there's some that's probably isn't, so they'd have to get Danny to send it to them, or they'd reach out and ask it from Danny. But that'd be all of our plans, CAG surveys, study, previous studies, all that. I know a lot of them are out of date, but a lot of them had good ideas and good stuff in them. So it could help them with a better starting point, I would think.
Can we go back to that 6? What do y'all feel about having a, I wouldn't say a commission, but a board of citizens to give updates to other citizens, where not necessarily just the 7 of y'all come to a meeting, because then it's an advertised public meeting, but you know, if y'all 7 of y'all came together and said, hey, this is kind of board we'd like to see to be an informational board. Definitely some business owners from Main Street, maybe some residents around Main Street, maybe one of y'all or 2 of y'all. Just, what we don't want to do is the mistake we made last time.
Yes.
And, you know, the illusion that we were hiding stuff. We want to be as, I think we all want to be as open as we can, but it's very difficult for the 7 of y'all to come and meet, because it's a different criteria than the 7 citizens coming to meet to talk to me or talk to the audience. Is that something y'all might want to, we could ask them to explore possibly, if other cities have done that?
Yeah. Sure. They talked about that at the last,
That came up on one of our
The Savannah.
questions for the candidates we interviewed.
Okay.
That's why I'll bring that
Yeah.
up.
One of the classes we went to in Savannah, they talked about doing that, but they had ideas about doing it all over the city, like, you know, get HOA people and doing like committees based like that. So, yeah, I'm open to that.
Well, as they develop whatever plans we might have in the future, wouldn't it be helpful for us to know what properties we own as the city and what we'd be willing to sell them for at some point in time? We have not done that as of yet. I just hate for somebody to come to town to talk to us and we don't have anything to say.
Well, yeah, I had that on my list, not necessarily what we would sell or what we'd sell it for, but what we own. Like a list of all the, yeah, perfect.
I have a map.
Yeah.
I think we all
Yep.
got it at some point. Received at retreat 2522.
Yep, that's perfect.
And I think we also have, Danny, a list of the properties, how much money we've got invested in them, where we could develop whatever we might want to do to. Because I prefer for us not to be landlords. I just think that's a difficult
Yeah, I would-
position to put us in.
You know, I would imagine that the council still wishes for the Development Authority to be the negotiating arm for the city, if it ever comes to the decision of selling property. The previous council did agree to that back in 2020, but that's something y'all need to understand, is who's gonna be the, you know, I think this company, whoever y'all pick, needs to decide, like, who is gonna be your real estate arm. You can do it, or you can let the authority do it, or you can create the Downtown Development Authority. Those are some of the things that you need to also keep in mind that. Yeah. Well, you know, it's.
There's a lot of legal reasons why we would want the LDA to do it.
Right.
However, I don't believe they're capable of doing it at this moment in time. I just don't. I mean, we're going to have to staff them. Somebody's going to have to
They
do
don't have a
something,
director, so it's not like it's a.
get them some funds, if we get to that point.
Well, they
And
get
of course,
funds per
they are
sale.
set us up so that if we do sell any properties through them, they do get a 3% commission, which would help solidify
on-
their coffers and allow them to do some things.
That's subject to the council,
Yep.
but yes. But I just think that the firm needs to know that we do have an active development authority, and let them be aware of that, hey, because that's a huge,
And I believe
Plus.
Dana wanted to be here. He's just out of town. I know his birthday was yesterday. So happy birthday, Dana, if you're watching.
Yes.
But also, he's trying to keep up with everything as well, so we could give his name and the board to the people. I don't see that being a problem. I just thought about this, but going back to number 6, I believe we've heard 2 options, so I think we might need to pick one. One option would be for them to do what GDOT did and send out stakeholder stuff for them to come to a meeting for stakeholders, or to do a committee. I don't think we really need to do both, so we probably need to do one or the other. Or,
Well,
Down the road, but first, once we pick someone and come up with a plan, then, but in the meantime, y'all can think now, like, hey, as a whole, like, hey, how many people do we want? Do we want a advisory board? Do we want another citizens advisory group, if you will? But that can be down the road after the firm.
Okay.
Right,
But
well,
I-
when
Firm
you
will
have
give-
your meeting and everybody comes,
Yeah.
there's gonna be, as it has been in the past, there's gonna be people from that meeting that rise up, and they're the ones that, they're gonna be looking for more information. That's where you could compile your committee
Yeah.
from there, but like, have your meeting first and get everybody here. You're gonna see who's the most interested, and they're gonna rise to the top
And
and
they'll
let them become, and then they feel more engaged,
Okay.
because this needs to be a community-driven project
I
from
was
day
thinking
one.
the stakeholders that need to be interviewed before, just so they have their say-so in it before the charrette. So maybe we could do Skip's idea or the DOT's beforehand, but then go ahead and get the committee together. So then during the event and afterwards, that would be kind of, that committee would be helping us in that sense,
I would think it would behoove us to have both,
both.
because we really need to know what those property owners have on their minds
Before the
before
charrette.
anybody can do much. If somebody says, I'm not changing my building, I don't care what happens, then we need to know that, and we can work around it. But without knowing what they're gonna do, I don't know what a group of citizens could act on. And I don't have any problem with either one. I'd really rather have both.
Okay, because I think one of the main issues most of them are gonna bring up is lack of parking and stuff, so I think we can already guess some of what they're gonna say, but I think it's good to go ahead and get as many people involved as we can.
I go back to, we gotta get these questions to whatever firm first and let them digest it, and then at that meeting, the public's gonna come, hopefully, and listen, and at that time,
sure they will.
because they may say, hey, you only need 10 people, or you only need 6 people, but if we go out and get 30 people, that's,
That's too much.
we need to let the firm get these questions, digest it, come back to y'all as a whole, and then we decide about doing it in public forums and stuff like that, because it's gonna take them 3 months to come up with a plan.
Yeah,
If we just start interviewing and saying, well, what do you wanna do, what do you wanna do, and nobody says no, then what we're gonna do?
No,
Well,
it needs to be in the format of whichever company we select performs each of these things, no doubt. You're right.
and then come back to us, and then we can set other meetings.
sounds like a plan. Thank you, Danny. And what are the top priorities? I was saying library location, town green, parking.
Well, priorities is, are they not gonna help us develop our master plan? So what you're talking about is part of a master plan.
Yeah, I think they're just asking our opinion on what we think the priorities are, and then they're gonna figure out, there might be other priorities that we have up here that really need to be further down or something. I think they just wanna know kind of where we come from, like what do we think from, you
Our
know?
number one priority is a plan that we all agree on. That's
Yes.
first and foremost.
And I think all of us would like to see a restaurant or two down there, but it's got to be a situation where they can be a viable business and make a living at it. I think all of us, if I'm hearing right, are agreeable to loss over the building if that makes it more sellable. I think I'm hearing that right. Share with me if I'm not. And then I'm hearing from a lot of people, maybe not the council so much, but get their opinion too. What if we had a craft brewery downtown? Is that interesting? Is it not? I don't know. But that's the kind of people they're going to be talking to that might want to come here.
Yeah, could be.
Well, and I think to Melanie and Danny's point, you know, the first priority is the master plan, and in the master plan, the priorities for me are like retail and restaurants, planned green space, expanded town green, library space, and infrastructure.
Yep.
Those are like my big 5 buckets,
Yep.
and I think we're probably all saying the same thing.
Nothing wrong with
I
that.
agree.
Yep.
So we agreed about a lot today after that. But over that, we agreed on a lot. I like that.
But the
Any
big
ti-
deal is, those businesses we'd like to see, somehow we got to make it where it would be viable businesses. Because to have a restaurant come in and leave in 6 months is not what we want.
Yeah. Any time constraints? Mine is the library, but we have that. Yeah, that's the only time constraint that I could think of, unless there's any, maybe we have something going out infrastructure-wise that we need to fix before a certain time now.
While we're on the library, the county did vote Tuesday.
They did.
Your mic on?
Yes, sir. It's on. The red light's on.
The red light is on.
1.2 million, I believe they approved.
1.2 million.
Yes. So anyway, that just made me think library.
Well, that's good, and you know, we got, what, probably 16 months left before that decision has to be made, but it sure would, I know the company that's gonna work with us is gonna wanna know where we wanna put it, and I guess we wanna know where do they think would be the most viable place to put it. So, and we won't find out from Georgia about their $3 million or more till April. It may be July. I was told April. I don't know.
And then number 10, obviously Tuesdays and Thursdays work for us because that's usually best for them to come talk to us.
I've
But
seen
that's
a couple
something we could
things
all
that
talk
April,
about later
who
on,
knows?
number 10. Any other downtown thoughts or anything that we want to let the firm know about? That wasn't covered in those questions. I think those questions brought up a lot of stuff to the surface and kind of, you know, getting us kind of on a lot of the same page.
Yeah, mainly I just want them to focus on a master plan and architectural standards and standardizing our zoning throughout the city. Because like, they need to look at the property that we have and see what it's zoned for now. Because we need to, as I said months ago, before we even entertain doing any of this, once we get the master plan, we need to go ahead and have that zoning set.
It's the downtown development
Yeah.
master.
That's what I'm saying. So we haven't done any of that. So those are the 3 things that, for me, back to the
We have the-
priorities.
We have.
We have
We
the
have it
start of it.
very-
We've already
yeah.
zoned everything? Okay.
Yeah, we have the start of it.
Yeah,
but
it can be changed.
It can all be changed in the downtown district.
So we took, if you're familiar with the PUV, and some of those restrictions, that was the template we used for the Main Street overlay district bars. Because if you create a new zoning, then you have to go for DCA, so but if you do an overlay, you all can do it without going through the state of Georgia. Correct, Tim? Thank you.
But there is a downtown district overlay set of standards that's different from the rest of the city. That's, okay. Got a great beginning point anyway.
And I would say, please look at them. The architectural guidelines are there too. Tell us what you like, don't like.
How many
Now-
pages long is that? Because if it's a lot, don't print it out. But if it's not a lot, would you print that out for me so I can start reading it?
And for those who want a copy, they're on Municode, but I will print you one.
Thank
Get
you.
to the boss.
So we've talked about a lot of things that there's a lot involved in this. I mean, you know, you start talking about things like the master plan and, you know, that is big, right? When I first talked to Sizemore, you know, because it was reaching out, I wanted something, I'm visual, I want that, some type of roadmap, some type of direction. They presented this approach, you know, to get us started, this charrette, this focus that gets us talking. I think these are great information put together. And I think what it'll do is it's that first step. Once we get through that, then we'll decide, okay, what's the direction going? Where do we want to focus our attention next, you know? I'm pretty happy with what we've gotten. I'd like to see us
Move forward
move forward with it.
with Sizemore. if I'm hearing you correct.
I would. I think we ought to take these notes, put it back together in a form we can get back to them, and, and then that's a start. I mean, we'll get something out of it, and hopefully what we'll get out of it is
We can use.
six council members and a mayor and a group and then citizens that have something that we can start working forward toward.
Yeah. I also like Sizemore as well because of the charrette. I think that's gonna be key, because a lot of people aren't gonna know until they see things. Like Bill says, a lot of people are very visual. Surveys, we've already got one, but that was kind of the counter argument for Haddow. Was they were gonna do another survey, and I would prefer a charrette over that. But they did have some other ideas that I know that we liked as well, so we could talk to Sizemore about doing those as well. It would just go up on the price. But we could also add-ons, like say we do the charrette and we want some artist rendering of stuff, and then we could do that as well at the charrette. But I think a lot of people are really gonna wanna do the charrette.
I'm fine with the charrette. The only thing I would like to say is maybe when we give them back all of these notes, that we ask them as part of their analysis, which property they think we should start with, and run the charrette off of that. Rather than, I mean, was the charrette gonna be the whole downtown?
I think it's gonna be a downtown master plan.
Okay.
But they could, say, but in the charrette, because if we do decide to hire them afterwards, they're gonna tell us, like, we need to tackle this first, this second,
Okay,
this third.
so that'll be part of the plan.
I don't know if that's gonna be a part of the plan or something that's developed after the plan.
But now, their thing that you're saying, they're gonna go, this is where you start, da, da, da.
Yeah.
But we may look at that and go, we can't afford to start there. So that's what I'm saying.
So
So
that's
they will
when we
give us,
have to
we
make some
might
hard
have to go
decisions,
to
maybe.
the fourth one, because that's the one we can afford. You know what I'm saying? Like,
It'll have to be phased,
right,
it'll be
yeah, you're not gonna,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly.
and then
So-
we can choose the phases, I'm sure.
So just because they come in and say this should be your priority, we can't afford that priority, we might have to go to number
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, or 5 down the
And
line.
it's like what I said last time, like a lot of this is done in 3-year phases. Like
Right.
anything over 3 years is out of date when it comes to economic development in downtowns especially. So they might give us a 3-year plan, but I don't know, but it might not encompass everything. Because they're like, well, there's no way we can do all of downtown in 3 years.
Right.
But we can get all the stops in place as long as we have a plan that we can all agree on. But it's not gonna ever really be set in stone either, because in 3 years, we're gonna have to like bob and weave if, like, say, I don't know, hypothetically, we wanted a rooftop restaurant right here, but maybe in 3 years, rooftop restaurants are a bad idea for downtowns or something, and people going away from them, then we might have to rethink that. I'm not saying that's gonna happen, it's just a bad example.
So I think y'all,
No, if it's the whole thing, it's okay. Yeah, I think, well, and Melanie was asking me, because I had said in our last meeting, could they do it in 30 days? But I think I misunderstood what they were gonna do. I thought they were gonna look at a piece of property and give us a building and tell us. So it sounds like what we're asking them for, and maybe you can write what we're asking them for based on the feedback here, that the charrette would be the whole down, like an overview master plan based on our feedback. Is that kind of what, like our priorities based on these
It's
answers?
the first step in the process.
Correct, yeah, I don't mean that we're gonna get a master plan in 30 days, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think we need to go.
And I think all of us would like to see their vision of what a master plan might look like, because we're all visual people. If we can share that with them too.
yeah, if you make a motion to approve Sizemore, then their first step is come back and do exactly what we're doing right now with y'all.
Yeah.
That's their step one, 2-hour kickoff meeting to discuss the vision, goals, aspirations, and what will help make this successful.
Right, and what we're looking at is their first steps 1 through 5 were $24,500.
Yes, ma'am.
We may have that first meeting and go, you know what, this ain't the way we want to go, and then we don't do the
Right.
$5,000 a month to stay with them.
That's correct. Then step 2 is to meet with whoever we identify as the stakeholders. Step 3 is to prepare the charrette, and then step 4 is the mini design charrette, and 5 is post charrettes. And then, by then, we'll have a plan, and then if we want to hire them to implement the steps 1 through 5, that will be appears to be $5,000 a month.
Okay, so we want to commit to a company and it commit to the amount of money for the first step
First 5 steps.
and leave
First 5
ourselves
steps.
open after that.
Yeah, I think we probably should do a contingency just in case, but also in case we want to add in an artist rendering. We don't have to come back and re-vote. We can just go ahead and do it because we have the budget for it. So I would say, well, what's the usual contingency, 10%, 20%,
10%.
10%,
Would be $2,400,
2,400, so we'd be looking at, you know, what, 27,
$2,700. I mean, 27,000.
27,000?
Or you can just say, approve the proposal for 24,500 with a 10% contingency.
Well,
And that's steps 1 through 5.
well, that's my motion then. To approve Sizemore Group, step 1 through 5, at $24,500 with a 10% contingency.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we will move along with that plan.
I'm excited.
One thing that we need to decide on too, they asked us if we wanted to, Tuesdays or Thursdays was the best time to meet with them. Do we need to pick a date? I mean, do we need to pick like a Tuesday or a Thursday?
As long as it's
Now?
in the afternoons, I think we're all pretty much safe on Tuesday, Thursdays. If we want to do a Saturday, that's fine, but we'd all have to check our schedules and their schedule.
I'm available anytime. I mean, this is important.
Yeah, I can make anything work.
This is our big time.
Unless I'm in the hospital or something, I can make it work.
I would prefer Thursdays. Tuesdays are bad for me.
Okay, Thursdays, what about Saturday? Okay,
Back up.
Tuesdays, out there, most people.
Seems like all the
Thursdays.
clubs in
Thursday.
towns always have their
Thursday.
meetings on Tuesdays, so
Danny says
Thursdays.
Bill says Thursday.
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 How about
Thursdays.
Saturday? Thursday or Saturday?
Or
depending on
Saturdays.
the need.
Thursdays work great.
Let's just do Thursdays. That way we're not bringing in people
Well-
on Saturday.
Yep,
That's
I
right.
agree.
Thursdays.
Would
Thursdays.
y'all like to move the time up from 6:30 to 6 PM? Or this is gonna be earlier in the day? I mean, this is gonna be a long discussion.
Mornings.
That's fine by me.
Well, I think we're gonna have to,
Yeah, I can't, it cuts into my,
Business.
yeah, so, I
What,
mean,
nap
6 or
time?
6:30 is fine.
and we need to ask whichever company you select, what can they do? Because their staff may not be available at that time either.
Yeah, we'll have to work it
So,
out.
we'll work it
Yeah,
out,
I
but
will get with them.
just have to be
We'll say
flexible.
6 PM on Thursdays,
Thursday nights.
Thursday nights. It will be the first or the third Thursday,
Okay.
because the other two are taken by meetings.
But does everybody agree we'll do whatever we have to do to make it happen? Sorta?
Yep.
Okay.
Uh,
Do we need a motion?
We already,
Okay, we already did all that.
mhm. Do we need to talk about LDA appointments now that it's closed now? We'll save that for the next meeting.
The what?
LDA appointments or anything?
I was gonna bring it up, just give you
Oh,
an
okay.
update. What about the Main Street Director position?
Main Street Director position. I think it's fair to say that we have not had any productive developments in that area, and the concern is we may not find the person. And I think Danny would prefer to go ahead and take it off the jobs available. I don't see any problem with leaving it on there in case the right person does step into the door, but whatever the council wants to do is what we'll do.
Danny, tell us again why you think it needs to come off, as far as what benefit it is for it to come off for us.
Well, it's really not a benefit or hurt, but if it just stays up there, it kind of goes ignored. If we take it off and reapply it, we can, even though we can do it now, we just, Christie sent it to, what, 3 or 4 different entities. I mean, whatever Christie thinks, she's fine with. She's the HR director, so she thinks we can keep it on there, we'll keep it on there. I was just gonna use that money to help pay for some of this, but it's not like 24,000. We can't move funds elsewhere, but it's really y'all's decision. If you wanna keep it up, I have no problem keeping it up. If you wanna take it down, we'll take it down. It's just one less thing to focus on.
you're not getting applications.
You want to take it
doesn't
down
that
till
long.
after we've done through this whole process, and then maybe they would say, put it back, and then we put it back?
We can,
That way it gives it a little break, then when you put it back, it looks fresh again.
yeah. What was the question?
I say, if you're not getting any applications, though, it's not taking much time, but
No, we're not. You got an application recently, Christie?
well, I'm fine with taking it down because we got a lot on our plate as well to manage with this.
So
And we
we'll
gotta
put it
come
back up in
later.
January? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's
Okay,
fine.
that way we won't have to come back for y'all to ask for permission to put it back up.
Do we
All
need to
right,
do a
Christie, we'll
motion?
take it down and we'll apply it in January.
Okay.
Christie, we let the other applicants know that we've decided to close it. Okay. And while we're, I guess, still in,
Guess we'll move to the city manager's report next.
yes, thank you, Mayor. We do have 3 applicants. One application came in to the Director of Development Authority, so he has sent that to Brandon. Brandon sent it to me, so I do have that. Do y'all want to set a time to interview those, or just have them at the next council meeting? And reminder, next council meeting is a combined meeting in October.
Oh, sorry.
We'll be not have the work session will be Thursday and the council meeting, which is the 13th of October.
I do know that LDA right now currently is okay because they got their event coming up that they've been working on and stuff, so I don't think they're really pushing to have someone on in there immediately. But I don't want to draw the process out either, because I don't want to make the people wait longer who applied. But I don't think that we should do it at our combined meeting. Those meetings are already long enough. I hate doing called council meetings as well, but that's pretty much, I guess, our 2 options, to do a called council meeting
What
later
else do we
on.
have on the council agenda that you know of next time? I mean, budget's done. We've done this now as a called council. Is it a light meeting?
Wasn't he coming back with the detention pond?
Yes, that's what it is.
Well, that's,
Planning and zoning, got anything for the next meeting? Okay.
no, he's coming back in November.
November, that's right. We're having a
November.
committee meeting in October. Yes, thank you. Chris, what was I asked you to put on the agenda for October? I don't know, we're still in September. I don't know.
Sometimes it doesn't open itself up to right before the meeting.
I mean, it's pretty simple. We already, if y'all use the same questions, we already had the same questions. We can email the questions to them like we've done in the past. They come here, there's 3 of them. It's just,
And how many positions are there open?
one.
Just one. I'd rather just do it in the council meeting.
That's fine. That's what
Personally.
everyone else is fine with.
Yeah.
And we've
So,
got 3
do you-
people to interview, right?
Yeah.
3 applicants.
And that's if they all 3 show up.
That's
Right.
true.
Right.
Now, so on that list, I send them, I tell them the date, and then I'll tell them when they'll be appointed. Are y'all gonna appoint the same night, or will you want some time to digest from October to November, and then make your decision in November?
I think October to November.
Did you say a point in November? Okay.
Y'all go with that? Okay.
As long as they know going in, so they know what to expect. I don't want them to think that we're voting on them that night, so they'll be okay, we'll wait another month. I know the LDA will be okay, we'll wait another month.
Do y'all need a month to decide, or you want 3 days to decide?
I
We
think
can
3
do it.
days.
I don't want to
November-
do it that night, so 3 days is fine with me. I just
So
don't
I
want
can
to
do
be.
November work session to interview, and then a November council meeting to vote. Y'all good with that, or would you rather interview them in October?
Well, I mean, if it's going to be a whole 30 days before they're appointed anyway, I don't see why we don't do it at the work session and then do it in,
Well,
seems,
do they,
since
I
we
know
got a
they-
combined meeting anyway.
can't skip though, like, in case the LDA does need the person, couldn't he swear them in outside a council meeting? No, we have to vote
Well,
on
they have
that.
to approve them by resolution
Approved
first.
by resolution,
Now,
okay.
he can go there after the council approves a person to swear him in, but he
Right.
can't swear him in until the council picks one person.
So if we pick 3 days after the October meeting,
No, you'd interview them at the November work session on Monday. Thursday, you would let me know, hopefully. I would have a resolution for all 3 names, and then
Okay.
whoever you
Ready
if you
for
voted, I would say, here's the resolution for Mr. So-and-so or Mrs. So-and-so.
okay.
That's very workable if we just communicate that to them.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, I'll let them know. Work session, interview, what time? During the council meeting or before? Typically, we do it 6 o'clock. Y'all go with 6 to interview them?
I think so.
That works.
Anybody have a problem with that?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, that sounds like a
6.
good plan.
Okay.
You okay with that?
Yes.
And then Thursday, council meeting, make your recommendation or decision. Okay.
Good plan.
Don't let me forget, Christie.
Magazine.
Okay. Anything else?
Just have the magazine that's in your packet. This came in Tuesday, Wednesday, yesterday. Robbie would like to get this approved immediately so he can go ahead and process it. It's on your desk or at your station. It is a contract, that's why it's before y'all. It's $6,820.11, and that is also for them to deliver it instead of us picking it up. So I'll just
And that
need-
comes out of the
Hotel,
motel
motel.
tax? Okay.
So just approval for the mayor to sign this.
And what does the advertisements go for in these? If it doesn't go to help pay for it just goes for events in general?
It goes in towards the magazine as well, I believe.
Okay.
So the advertising in the magazine helps pay part of the cost.
I believe so, towards the cost.
I think it's great that for communication purposes. I wouldn't want to get rid of it by any means, but, so I guess we need a motion at this point in time.
I make a motion that we approve the Walton Press contract.
Okay? We have a second? Okay, Ann seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, done. Anything else, Danny?
Who seconded that?
Ann.
Well, he left, but we was gonna tell Chief Lowry happy birthday. It was his yesterday. And then also, this is not an item, but just to let you aware that one of our Chief Johnson, Tim Johnson's daughter, had a major surgery. She had a mass taken from herself. They're up at Duke University Hospital. He's taking a leave of absence for a couple of weeks to be with her. So just
Good.
keep Tim's daughter, what's her name? Lindsay, in your thoughts and prayers, please.
He's been dealing with that for a while.
He has. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Danny. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Meeting adjourned.